Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you can see my face and hear my voice, me and my afro would like to welcome you to the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. Uh, that can only mean it is time once again for the worst, 90, 120 minutes or so in all of sports podcasting. I'm Mike, and I am joined again by the aforementioned Afro and my producer in all things podcasting, producer Stead. How goes it, sir?
I'm mad that you stole my afro that I had 20 years ago before I started going bald, but it's a very beautiful looking fro. I'm quite proud of you. Looks good. Looks good.
Yeah. I'm getting it rebraided on Wednesday. So I had to blow it all out today and stuff this
Well,
weekend.
you haven't been overly attacked by grays yet, which is nice. You got some salt and pepper in your beard, but you're still holding your color pretty good. So that's good.
Yeah, there's a lot more gray than I remember. So
Yeah.
I'm happy. I am happy with that, though. And wearing it like this actually kind of hides you.
Yeah.
And so we are also joined this international break evening by our good friend Bayern Rob, who I know has plenty to say, both about Bayern Munich and the coaching carousel that began there, and the U.S. men's national team, who are currently, as we record this, playing. And you know what? I think we're going to wait a little bit longer because there's only but so much left in this game, and then we'll talk about it when we end. So, Rob, how goes it this evening?
It's good. It's going great. I was traveling for work. Then the chaos happened with in FC Hollywood, and I ate my sorrows away by having an entire plate of chicken carbonara. So yeah, it's been an interesting week, and interesting like 5 days or so.
All right, and our good friend Professor Matt, the denizen of all things Eastern European. How goes it, my friend?
It goes better than Belarus. So we'll talk about that.
And we are talking about Kazakhstan.
Yes, we are.
We are talking about Kazakhstan, Denmark today. Absolutely.
Yes, we are.
So let's get it started. It is an international week, which sees qualifications for the forthcoming African Cup of Nations going on in Africa, the beginning of Euro 2024 qualifying in Europe, and Nations League games in CONCACAF. So, it is your typical, gentlemen, I feel, kind of international break. There are a fair few interesting games that have happened, but by and large, you just kind of go through it. As far as the U.S. goes, they beat Grenada 7-1 on Friday, which qualifies them for the Gold Cup. I actually was kind of curious what would have happened had they failed to qualify for the Gold Cup, considering they're hosting the tournament as they always do. Well, that would have been embarrassing. But I got to say, the result of the week, I guess the result of the weekend for me, as far as CONCACAF results go, came yesterday, where Jamaica, who I have been banging the drum about for quite a while now, went down to the Stadio Azteca and came away with a 2-2 draw. So Jamaica now through to the Gold Cup finals, and if you look at to the Gold Cup, Mexico wins the group and will be contesting the Nations League finals this summer in Vegas, because we know all CONCACAF tournaments need to be hosted by mandate in the United States. Mm-hmm. So, but Jamaica through to the Gold Cup, and again, gentlemen, I gotta say, given the fact that the U.S., Canada, and Mexico are already through to the expanded World Cup, which we talked about last time we were all together, I have a good feeling about this Jamaican team. I think that this was the type of result early in this campaign that they needed. And to their benefit over the course of the next couple of years, they are going to get a lot of meaningful games, which is something that they do not always get, which tends to harm them when it comes to future qualifications. And that said, Adidas is now doing their kits. And if you haven't seen the home and away jersey for Jamaica, they are absolute fire. I mean, the home one with the yellow and the green kind of pinstripe, all right. But that black jersey that they did, that is something else again. Huge fan, may have to go out and get it with, of course, you can't get a Jamaica jersey without Marley 10 on the back. I know it's as jingoistic as it could possibly be, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's me and it's fun. So, Stead, I know you
Yes.
probably didn't watch it, but yeah, we've talked a lot about Jamaica, and this is a result that could really go a long way for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hate to say this is more of a good result for Jamaica or a bad result for Mexico, but I think because Jamaica has qualified for various tournaments before, they have it's a footballing nation. They produce some of the greatest athletes in this part of the world. And so it's a good story. I think we'll see what kind of noise they can make at the Gold Cup. I think the team that should be worried most about Jamaica is the United States, considering what the recent history has been. But it'll be interesting to watch. It's hard for me. It's hard for me to care about the Gold Cup. I think that's probably the bigger thing. I think I'd be much more interested the more I see more representation from the Caribbean islands, as opposed to it being the three big dogs in North America plus a couple of teams from Central America, and you'll see Haiti get in there and lose 8-0 because Haiti has enough of their own issues to be that soccer shouldn't be something that they're really on their plate. You could imagine how good they'd be if they could actually get the country together, because as we've said before, and as I said ad nauseum, the way Haitian athletes produce for other countries is just absolutely phenomenal. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I think it's a good result for Jamaica, though. I mean, it's good. Anytime you can go into Mexico and leave with a draw, you should go home and party. So hopefully they did. Actually, no, I'm sure they did.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah, and I love Jamaica. Been to Jamaica a couple times. Love it. It's a great place. I love Jamaica.
So, Matt, what did you make of all of that?
I'm probably also going to get myself one of the new Jamaica kits, because Jamaica's always been my second team in CONCACAF because of those kits from 1998. And
Those are beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I fell in love with those kits. And, for someone who grew up in the New York area with a lot of Jamaicans, grew up listening to ska and reggae, it was kind of a natural fit. And if you're a Jamaica fan, you should be excited, because they've slowly but surely been sort of creeping up to being that fourth or fifth team in CONCACAF. Costa Rica is not the team they were. Panama, I still don't totally understand how they got to the World Cup, in 2018, but they did. They're a baseball playing nation. And I'm sure we're going to talk about this on the pod dedicated to it. A lot of Jamaican players who would have in previous years played for England, Scotland, etc., they're coming and representing, the Jamaican team. And that's, I think that's a big deal, because there was a bit of a talent train in that regard over the years. That, and they've been wildly inconsistent, but this is a big result for them. And yeah, with the expanded playing field and with more CONCACAF spots available, with the big three sort of off the table, yeah, that they could be back in the World Cup quite easily.
I think one of the things, though, is what you said. You brought up an interesting point about a lot of people who would have otherwise represented other nations playing for Jamaica. What I'm seeing more is that they are going out and being able to recruit expats. But these expats, Leon Bailey, for example, who currently is at I believe West Ham or yeah, who's at West Ham, either West Ham or Villa. You know, he wanted to play for Germany. He wanted to play for England. Couldn't get on either one of the radars. So ends up, he's got no other choice. You got Mikel Antonio, who for West Ham for sure, who never got called up by anybody, goes and plays for Jamaica. Ravel Morrison, you know, he did get a call up for Jamaica. I don't know if he's even going to be on the team anymore, considering like he's not even playing for. He got cut by the DC United after Wayne Rooney gave him a shot. But you're getting some more of these guys who are coming over. It also helps when you have Andre Blake in between the sticks, who I will keep saying, if he played in a World Cup and played for any national team other than Jamaica, I'm pretty sure he would have been in Europe, starting in one of the big leagues by now, right? Even if he hadn't gone straight to the Premier League, I gotta believe he would have gone to the Championship, to the Netherlands, to Belgium, to someplace, and worked his way up, because he's a really solid, dependable goalkeeper. And you know, just somebody who I think has been perpetually overlooked because he plays in the MLS, he plays for the Jamaican national team, and everybody's able to write him off and says, well, just look, he doesn't play for anything. Remember, here is a guy who keyed them to 2 consecutive Gold Cup finals, right? Yes. Did they lose them both? Yeah. But when you look at the talent that they had on the squad, a lot of it came down to his ability to stop shots long enough for them to hopefully get one in.
Particularly their back four, which has been their weakness. He's kept them in a lot more matches than I think people give him credit.
That's been Jamaica's weakness for a very long time, though. Their inconsistent defensive play is, and it's when everybody plays street ball and everyone's looking for to develop their foot skills. The thing that's going to suffer the most chances are going to be especially your central defense.
But Matt and I and everybody were making the same point. The fact that more games aren't 3-3. 4-4, 3-1, something like that for them. A lot of the fact that they had any sort of defensive record to talk about is down to Andre Blake and his ability, right? He forgives a ton of sins back there. Rob, I want to get you in on this conversation. What did you make of Jamaica and their game against Mexico?
Once again, the L tree proving to be LLL tree. The only refreshing thing is that Mexico finally played a kind of like I mean, it's a significant, but not really, game in the Azteca. They always find a way to play like non-World Cup qualifiers in America or elsewhere. So that's probably the only good thing, but Mexico's been in the mud, man. And I'm all for it. Love seeing Jamaica do well. That beautiful goal was great. Those kits are fantastic. Adidas always makes really good stuff. I mean, I don't know if I'll buy one, you know, because I have strict limits on like who I buy for, but I can admire the design from afar. So no, it's getting to the point where in Jamaica is going to have access to some players who probably would maybe have waited for the English national team, because I think that there's just it's really hard to get up there and play for England. There's just a lot of competition there. So, and and especially this World Cup cycle, there's a legit option. I mean, a legit chance to play in the World Cup. You know, considering the top 3 teams, or all right, the top the top 3 teams, the top 3 teams auto qualified, and it's an expanded field. And if you have some Jamaican, ancestry, you have a chance to play in the World Cup. So I fully expect Jamaica to make a serious play to play in 2026. So it's gonna be fun. I'm excited for them. I think they'll be good. And Costa Rica's going down as well. Their generation, like the Brian Ruiz's of the world, the Killer Navas's of the world, they're going to retire very soon, and there's really nobody left to take their place. So, yeah,
they're still trying to place Paulo Wancho, and they still have I forgot his name. He's played for Arsenal. He's still playing for them. I
I was
believe he
just about to ask, is he still there?
he's still there. He's still playing for Costa Rica. Absolutely. I forgot the last club he was with. And of course his name is leaving me.
Joe Campbell.
Joe Campbell, yeah.
Mm.
Because the funny thing was he went to Olympiacos and actually played well in Greece for a few years.
Yeah.
And
He's only 30, by the way. Can you
yeah,
imagine?
he's not that old. I mean,
He's
he was
30.
young. Arsenal grabbed him as a youngster. He was a young guy when they brought him over, and they tried to give him a shot. He had a couple of flashes in cup games, and he made a couple of Premier League appearances. But he just funny thing was when he went over to Greece and started wrecking things over in Greece, we were like, hey, I realized I think he's a player that.
Oh yeah, Stead, your mic's cutting out a little bit, and I will continue to admire Joe Campbell. 2014 World Cup was amazing for him. He currently plays at Lyon, so good, decent league.
Mm-hmm. So now, Rob, you brought up something about England players opting to go to Jamaica, the ones who can. We're dealing with something like that in the U.S. right now. You mentioned the Florian Balogun sign. The story goes back to when teams were announced. He had, I guess, anticipated a call up to the England national team. He has played for the U21s. It did not come. There was a cryptic tweet that said, go where you're appreciated or go where you're wanted, something to that effect. He was called into the England under-21 camp. He turned up injured. And then all of a sudden, last Thursday night into Friday, he pops up in Orlando. There are tweets. There's all a social media storm. He's apparently having dinner with the players, meeting with some of the people. I guess maybe getting a feel for the camp. We all talked about it. I think some of us have varying opinions on how invested to get in this. But you are our resident social media stalker, and you keep the U.S. men's national team roster up to date. Where do we stand with this saga of the young guy who's absolutely tearing up League On right now?
You know what? I'm before Gareth Southgate opened his mouth, I was 50-50. And then he had to open his mouth. Gareth Southgate goes, I quote, on Balogun, "We can't go and give first team call-ups to someone just because we don't want them to go somewhere else. He obviously not had an opportunity in the Premier League yet. So we have to weigh up those goals to quote unquote Ivan Toney, for example, or Ollie Watkins." Now, once again, this is Premier League snobbery. Balogun, I'm sorry. You know who played the league on? Messi. You know who played the league on? Mbappe. And so Balogun,
Rob, you know how many times we've clowned on League On?
I understand. No, I completely get it. I completely get it.
We know they play there, and then the four of us sit around all the time and say, yeah, PSG will never win anything because they play in League On. And they
As
don't
I've said
play any
before,
serious
you gotta prove me wrong. You gotta prove me wrong.
No,
prove me wrong.
PSG won't win nothing because they had no soul. All right, it's a different story.
Yeah, but so now we're going to change the narrative.
No, it's always been my narrative. PSG don't win Champions League because in order to win Champions League, you have to have soul. You can't just be pure mercenaries set up like a chess pieces. But going back to Balogun, he's doing really well in Ligue 1, and he can't get a look. And then you compare him to Ivan Toney and Ollie Watkins, like really? And so, just once again saying, you know what, dude, you can't play this league. You can't play in this squad until you play Premier League minutes, because we all know the disrespect that Jadon Sancho got, because he would play in Dortmund. Thank goodness Jude Bellingham is getting, has pretty much broken that. So because of this, and because Balogun looked like he had a really good time, he met with the Yankees. He met with the team, as we talked about. They're the full court press by the fans on Balogun. There's Balogun signs everywhere. There's a Balogun sign in the Capo stand. So it's tonight, currently on right now. You can watch it on TNT. I think it's, and also you got to remember. So this leak happened last week, pretty much because a bartender who was on the USA Discord that I follow, he was serving JT Batson, who's the CEO of US Soccer, and he leaked out saying it's Balogun's coming to Orlando. And what did it do? Balogun came to Orlando, and so this is an orchestrated situation. This is a recruitment effort. It's Gareth Southgate should just shut up, and pretty much call this guy up, give him a look, give someone like a Harry Kane a break or something and cap him. But no, once again, it's not Premier League snobbery, and Balogun's coming to the US. I have a 75% chance he'll be cap tied this summer.
So we're dealing with a young kid. Yes, he's an Arsenal product. Instead, yes, they like him. He's on loan. Hasn't done much as a senior player until this year, and then absolutely lights the league on fire. Should he jump the line, so to speak, and be ahead of Ivan Toney, and Ollie Watkins and things like that, given that, to be honest, he's got more goals than Toney does right now, but we're not talking about an absolute blowout here.
No, and Rob, I hope you're right, but when you look who's ahead of him, these aren't world-beaten strikers. I mean, they're not. You take Ollie Watkins, Ivan Toney. I had the list up too. You think, well, who are the actual people who are going to be a striker, like goal scorer? So, Jared Bowen, Tammy Abraham. I think he deserves a shot. And
when was the last time he's?
Yeah, and so I'm thinking, outside of Rashford, who is he really kind of worse than? Because you got to exclude Harry Kane. Harry Kane, he's also 29. Harry Kane isn't going anywhere. Grealish, he's not going to be behind Grealish. So you're thinking about, okay, who do you have to worry about that's ahead of you outside of Harry Kane, Marcus Rashford, Bukayo Saka? I don't know. So all I'm saying is
Bukayo Saka's not going to play as a striker.
Exactly. I'm just talking about, but he's considered a quote unquote forward. So my point is that, considering his role with his current role and his role that Arsenal's clearly setting him up for is that central attacking player, do you want to leave England when you do have a legit shot? You do have a legit shot. You're only 21. Now, we could say the flip side of this, though, is you're already 21. And let's not forget, Raheem Sterling was starting for the England national team when he was 19 and 18. He was already starting. So Harry Kane was as well as a very young player. Also, even though Arteta seems to do well so far with the players who he sent to loan in France to get them some minutes so they can come back and play in the Premier League, we've also seen players who score well in France don't often come over to England and score well. They don't often do that. So that's not to preclude that he should play for the English national team. But what I am saying is scoring goals in France is just not as big of a deal. It's just not. And so while I think he could come over to CONCACAF and be a superstar, I also don't think he should necessarily just jump ship on England really quickly because we all know how the hierarchy is. There's a hierarchy of teams you play for. You play for the country where you grew up the most first, especially if that country is in Europe. You play for them first. Now, second is you play for the country that can make you the most money if it's not that country. That's why you're seeing players who are eligible to play for African teams that are better than the United States are going to elect to play for the United States because they can't, because you're setting you up for, you're going to make more money. So I think this is a very interesting situation. I don't have an answer. I normally when I go on one of my little tangents, I kind of wrap it up. I don't have a nice salad bowl to put this in. I don't. I think this is going to be a story that's going to be played out, and I think he needs to just slow down. And also, are we confident that Southgate is going to be in that job for the foreseeable future, like for the next 4 years? Are we confident that's going to happen, or are we not? I don't know. It's England, it's England.
Well, he does have he has a contract that gets him through at least the Euros. So
right?
we know,
Right.
So we know he'll be there at least through next summer.
Well,
right?
It's a contract. He has a contract.
Short of them absolutely stubbing their toe,
right? Which for qualification for them, they always seem to get a really favorable group. They play against a lot of this. They'll play against a stand, which you don't want to play against anymore, though, right?
Yeah, but probably I want to say like they're really, really, really serious match in the group that they had to play.
Yeah.
I'm
not saying they should sack Southgate either. I think Southgate's actually done very well for England. I think he's done very well.
No, you said, will he still be there? And I said, if barring them completely falling on their face during qualification, he will be there to see them through the Euros, right? Barring them complete and their toughest match that I could see. Yes, I understand that the Ukraine away match, which could be played any number of places, Matt, would be a tough one. But seriously, the biggest one that they had was the first one up, and they did go to Italy and they did win in Napoli. So, that was the big boy that they had to get over. I mean, they haven't won in Italy since Leonardo da Vinci was painting stick figures. Matt, what do you make of this Florian Balogun thing?
It's funny because Stead actually brought up sort of where I was going. Time is on this guy's side. And on the one hand, what Southgate said, you could take that and sort of go where Rob went and be like, really, Ollie Watkins? You want Ollie Watkins more than I? The flip side of that is you can then deep that and be like, wait a minute. It's Ollie Watkins. I'm a big Ivan Toney fan, so I'm just going to throw that out there now. But if you look other than Kane, if we're talking pure center forwards, that backup striker role is kind of wide open because even Rashford is more of a movable piece,
right? In
the front three,
that backup role was Jamie Vardy, who said, I don't want to play with England anymore because I don't really want to just go there to sit on the bench. And I'm 33, 34, however he was when he retired. So I agree with you 100%.
This brings up something, though, that I've said, I think, on the pod before. Having more competitive internationals, the Nations Leagues, etc., are great. But it's a situation like this with a young player like this, where old school Frick friendlies with giant rosters were great because you could call him up, you could give him quote unquote meaningful minutes, and you can make some determinations. With more competitive matches, you're almost like Mike, you said give Harry Kane a rest. And they give Harry Kane a rest?
I didn't say that. That was actually Stead.
Oh, was that Stead?
Yeah. I know we look alike. You did.
No.
I didn't.
I didn't say give. Did I say give him a rest?
Someone said give him a rest.
You
Oh, it's Rob. Okay. But-
Rob said give him a rest.
I said he was getting close to 30. Is what I said.
Okay, I know. All I know is I didn't say that, but I get
Right.
the point is, you know, like in a friendly, you probably could.
Yeah. So I it's a weird situation. Would I love to see him come to play at the United States? No doubt. No doubt. But if I'm him, and it's funny, you brought up Leon Bailey a little bit earlier. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bailey kind of waited and saw his options, right? Because there was a time about 4 or 5 years ago where there was a legitimate chance that he could have gotten a Germany call up. But ultimately that didn't happen. So like if you're 21, if he was 23, 24, yeah, I think I think maybe, you know, that would make the decision a lot easier. I don't know. I think I would like hedge my bets a little bit. Because again, outside of Kane, who else is there? And who else is on the horizon for England?
That's what I was wondering. You know,
Yeah,
who's the next
well,
guy?
We don't know, and sometimes you don't know because, you know, prior to him bursting on the scene, who was Marcus Rashford?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we knew Jude Bellingham was really good. London Sean, instead, you guys might have known that Bukayo Saka had talent. I don't know that we knew he was that good. Sometimes these guys just burst onto the scene, and it's hard to see them coming.
I am going to say this. I will say, I saw Bukayo Saka. I called him, and I was like, that kid is a superstar. That's the first and probably only time I will ever be right about something like that. But I did call that one, and I will hang my hat on that until I'm 95 years old. I said Saka was going to be great.
Yeah, the first time that Marcus Rashford started that Europa League game under Louis van Gaal, I was like, oh crap, we're going to lose this. Who's this cat? And then he decided to score a brace, and he never stopped scoring for the next 2 years. The point being, you know, sometimes you just don't know who's in the pipeline and where they may show up. You know, young guys have a habit of looking really good at 18 and then not so great at 21. Some guys, you know, blossom a little bit later. They get games and then all of a sudden. So saying who's in the pipeline right now is a little bit of something. Instead, you did bring up a thing real quick that I want to talk about before I get on the Rob, which was the idea of you play for the country where you grew up and then you play for the country that could give you the most money. And normally I would have said like, okay, well, that's going to be England in both cases, but I don't necessarily know that that's the case right now. Number one, if and only if, and I'm not saying that he will, but if Balogun comes to the United States, plays for the U.S. men's national team, even if he isn't a MLS player, but all of a sudden he starts banging in the goals, we are getting to a place where we're going to start promoting the 2026 World Cup. And if there's one thing I know about U.S. companies' promotions when it comes to a World Cup and anything soccer related, they grab the lowest possible hanging fruit, right? So if you're going to promote anything in the United States leading into a World Cup, you're going to go right now, Christian Pulisic. But Balogun comes in and he starts scoring goals and he starts finishing, then all of a sudden it's going to be Balogun.
Well,
He's going to make a boatload of money.
Yeah, so you're solidifying my point. My point was not that he was going to stay in England no matter what. That my point was that if he could not play for England in the manner that he hopes to, he's going to come to the United States because that's where he can make a lot of money.
My point was, you know, a couple of years ago, I would have said, and at first blush, I was, England. Yeah, because you'll get way more endorsement. And I'm starting to rethink that necessarily.
Oh, right.
I agree.
If you're
with
a national team level player for the United States and it is a World Cup cycle, you know, 60% of Americans don't care until it's a World Cup. And then they care for about 6 or 7 weeks after it's over. And then they kind of stop caring again, which is fine. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But in that snippet of time, he could line those pockets something fierce. And also, as you well know, they don't need to know everybody on the national team. They need to know like 3 guys. So you got a kid who is in his early 20s, handsome, born in Brooklyn. You know, you don't think he can do razor blade commercials for Gillette for 4 years in between World Cup cycles.
Look at how well they were using Weston McKennie.
Yeah.
You know, because they used the dirt out of Christian Pulisic. They said we need to get somebody else in. It was Weston McKennie and Tyler Adams.
And Mike,
Yeah,
you brought up, Pulisic as the poster child. Imagine if this guy does make the transition to England, doesn't even have to be Arsenal. Let's say he goes, to the Premier League someplace else and he balls. That's even more exposure because let's be real, Pulisic he's been very up and down, let's say.
yeah.
So,
But he's Captain America over here because he's what we got. All right, Rob, you've been waiting patiently. You had a couple of points to make, so fire away.
So a couple notes, and then we can move on. At least on my end, Balogun deleted all his Instagram posts with him wearing the England shirt. It's number one, and number two, we don't forget we got Copa America. We got Copa America coming up in 2024.
Let me say this, Rob. I don't know if you are going to bring this up, but I wouldn't be surprised if the next 10 years Copa America includes the entire part of the hemisphere. I wouldn't be surprised if that occurs.
There has been very, very early preliminary talks about potentially expanding the field of Copa America, or potentially having more of a regular joint tournament, or even potentially just making a giant conference in order to compete with UEFA. That has been mentioned, but it feels like the problem. It's CONCACAF may like it, may not like it, but yeah. So that has been talked about very, very early on. I have no idea how. Because people are gonna have to put down egos for this to happen. But yeah, Balogun had the chance to play in a very prestigious tournament. Yeah, it's gonna have some CONCACAF teams, and they're gonna be the Copa America that we all know. But it's still gonna have quality matches. And we all remember from when was that? 2016 or whatever. I forget what that was.
I think it was a little bit. Yeah, it was a great tournament, and be what it may, the Copa America Centenario, the one that was up here, it was a fantastic tournament.
It was great.
And I don't think that there was anything that was diluted. I know that there have been, like you said, there have been, but again, it is like the idea of the home nations coming together to form one soccer team. It's never going to happen. Why would CONCACAF give up their seat at the table to merge with CONMEBOL? Why would
I wasn't saying that either. I'm just saying that I know that. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if that tournament gets expanded and they start inviting the Mexicos and United States and Canadas of the world, because when you have exactly, but also CONMEBOL,
it's the money, but
CONMEBOL's got a problem, not problem, but CONMEBOL has 10 teams, and that's a weird number. It's a weird number because you have groups of 5, then you have this knockout thing. It's just kind of weird. Multiple. Look, it works best in like multiples of 2 as an expansion. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. So it's like it works best in multiples, in exponents of 2. Former math teacher here. So when you have 10, it's just a little weird. It's a little weird. So you could, which is why the Copa America has always invited a few teams to come. They've always invited a couple because they'd like to get to 12. 12 makes a little bit more sense. They were able to do 16 for the Centenario, I believe. That made a little bit more sense. So, and yes, it is about money, but also if you know the history of the Copa America, it is the most haphazard, weird, corrupt. It's all kinds of craziness that goes on with that tournament, and they just kind of go, well, let's just do one now. And so to see CONMEBOL decide to change something and go, we're going to invite these North American teams. They're going to come every 2 years for Copa America. It's going to be great, and then let United States win, or let Mexico win. they'll never be invited back for the next 10 years. And let's not forget,
Well,
in 95, I think it was 95. I think it was 95 or 96. Can't remember the year. US went down there and finished, what, third or fourth? Third. Didn't get invited back.
mm-mm.
Didn't get invited back. So let's not forget.
Didn't get
that
invited back,
It's
but then-
CONMEBOL. CONMEBOL will do some craziness
Yeah.
if they feel like it.
Then they finally invited us back, and Bob Bradley took a B squad, and so
Yeah.
they didn't invite us back. But I think part of it is
Which I was very angry at Bob Bradley about. I was very angry about that. That was
but
ridiculous.
I also think it was a bad decision, but they guised the desire to not deal with America on their home soil in their tournament
Mhm.
by saying that they want the money, they don't want the strings, which is why I would say I think you're looking at a once every 8-10 year thing. Will they do it up here? Because then they can line their coffers for the next decade
Mhm.
without having to feel as though they're beholden to the USA.
Right.
And that's just, it's an imperialism thing. It's an anti-US bias thing. It's a
course.
desire to just not deal with.
You don't want to be
the
under
big-
the US umbrella in this hemisphere. You don't want to.
No, nobody does.
Nobody does.
So I get it, and
Mhm.
I can agree, and it's going to be a great tournament. You're right, but Rob, if it comes to we're waiting for him to play in Copa America next year, my guess is that ship has flown. If he's not playing in the Gold Cup this year, the longer and longer it goes without this guy being tied to the US, the less and less likely it is that he sticks and stays, because then Gareth Southgate sees more of Ivan Toney, more of Ollie Watkins, more of the fact that he doesn't have that player, and this guy fits the bill, and all of a sudden he gets called up. But on the flip side, let's go back to what we first said. We're dealing with a 21-year-old kid who has barely, I think, played but one or two maybe senior games for Arsenal, who all of a sudden goes to France, starts knocking in the goals in France, and all of a sudden we're declaring him the savior of the U.S. men's national team. Now, I know it says a couple of things.
We do.
One, we're talking about, we are still a little bit starved for talent. Two, just how lacking the U.S. talent pool is in terms of strikers, right? Just how that, because we can all agree that if he does join the U.S. Setup, he automatically becomes the best striker. He starts every game at center forward. I do think it starts to put things back in order. You can play this system with a Christian Pulisic on the wings, interchange with Giovanni Reyna, Tim Weah, who I actually think might be more effective in that position. And then you have the likes of Reyna, Aronson, all of those guys potentially off the bench. You can still do your three-man midfield, which they seem to like, that midfield of Adams, Musa, and McKinney. And then your back four. But, he automatically just gets penciled in ahead of everybody. And here's a guy who may not have even considered playing for the U.S. really seriously until last Friday. So, it says a little bit about where we are, but as a country, as a team right now, that, we're all so psyched about this kid who we've barely seen for a full season yet.
As we should be. I mean, I'm sorry. We've seen this. We haven't had an effective center forward since Eric Winalda and Brian McBride. We just haven't. And the fact that there's someone who's flirting with us is automatically going to make us blush a little bit. And I just
but
exactly.
I still feel like this is the pretty girl in the bar, and she may not even be a straight up dime, We're
Right.
talking about like, somebody in that 7.5, 8 range,
Yeah.
but they're
Oh,
making
yeah.
eyes at us potentially to make their boyfriend jealous. And I've got to prove that I'm the better fit.
That's true. But when you're a 6 or a 5 and you have a 7.5, 8 flirt with you a little bit, makes you feel pretty damn good.
But are we really a 6 or a 5? I think that we're closer to a 6.5, 7. Like, we're in that
okay,
league.
but
But we have
I
to.
gotta get it.
We may be. We may be a 6.5, 7 on appearance, but we have the self-esteem of a 3.
Yeah, I have to agree. I have to agree.
It's like we're that fat kid that got into the gym and
Yeah.
started lifting weights,
Hey,
and all of a
or
sudden
the bony kid who
dropped
got
a
in the
few
gym and started lifting weights. That was
with
me.
him and started lifting weights.
I get it.
I know that, but so you have the appearance of a 7-piece, but the self-esteem of a 3.
Mhm.
And so when the pretty girl starts making eyes at you, you just lose your doggone mind.
Hey, Chelsea Mike, since you just jumped in, we're talking about Balogun. So
Yeah, I don't know what you guys are talking about.
It
We don't
doesn't
need
matter. Say whatever
Balogun.
you want, man.
Because Claudio Reyna told me that his son is going to save America, so we're fine.
Mhm. Yes.
We're fine. We've got our #1 striker, whatever, forever.
So I held off on this long enough to watch the game, and the U.S. men's national team ends their Nations League group stage with a win 1-0 over El Salvador in Orlando this evening. Ricardo Pepi with the second half goal. Gentlemen, my first take on this, having watched the game just end, this was kind of what we just talked about. This is what the U.S. men's national team are. They kind of dominated possession, but really could not score against a team that defended. It came down to a substitution and a really phenomenal pass and run from Weston McKennie that set Ricardo Pepi free for the chip, in a moment of brilliance from 2 players, but just so many opportunities and so many disconnects. And it just reminded me so much of what I watched in the World Cup, where, once they got into the 18-yard box, nobody seemed to know what to do. Nobody seemed to know where to go. Nobody seemed to have, I don't want to say nobody seemed to have ideas, because I felt like a lot of people had ideas. It was just nobody was on the same page. Case in point, in the second half, Alejandro Zendejas gets a pass and he moves through and he just floats this absolutely lovely ball to the far post, which would have been an easy tap in for everybody, but there's nobody there because everybody ran to the near post. And I just feel, gentlemen, that's kind of where we are sometimes, where it's like when they get into the attacking, the final attack, the players they just don't know what to do and where to go. Rob, I know you were watching too. What did you make of this?
Nation leagues are weird because, it's an official tournament, but they're really official. It's hard to score when, one team just defended all the time. So it's just difficult in general. You figured like they would attack a little bit and then you could hit them on transitions. But even when there were those opportunities, the U.S. just seemed like they didn't want to like play a transition game. They wanted to just take their time. It almost like they wanted to play a certain way and try certain things, and that's it. And then in the first half, it's kind of blah. The second half was much better. Deke didn't do much, but Pepe scoring literally minutes after he got on the field. That was nice to see. Nice, beautiful chip as well. Beautiful ball by Weston McKennie, who there's plenty of the haters out there who say Weston McKennie can't pass. Well, Apparently, he could set up Pepe very, very nicely. It's really hard for me to get into Nations League. It's just not something like, guy, talk to me in the semis, talk to me this summer in the finals when we're playing Mexico. Then we'll talk. I mean, to me, like this stuff, like Grenada, and I'm like, what else? I mean,
Well, I've said this a lot, Rob. There's only one thing you can learn about games from this, and it's all bad. Like, if the U.S. hadn't gone out and thumped Grenada 7-1, we'd be sitting here talking about what was wrong with them. If they hadn't beaten El Salvador, if they hadn't made it, if they had somehow, as I said at the top of the show, managed to not top this group, we'd be talking about it right now. If they've managed to they finished third, not qualified for the Gold Cup, we'd be talking about it now. So the only thing that you can learn from something like this right now is bad. But again, you're right. Talk about it when it comes in the summer and we're playing against Panama, Canada. So it's going to be Panama, Canada, the U.S., and Mexico in Vegas for the semifinals. I know the behind-the-scenes engineering is already going through to ensure that the U.S. plays Panama in the semifinals.
yeah,
No doubt about that.
I because that Gold Cup final in Vegas, by the way, in I forget 2021, was freaking electric, and I guarantee you they want that again. They want USA Mexico in Las Vegas in the final.
Every tournament that we play in CONCACAF is specifically engineered somehow for the U.S. to play Mexico at the end, because that's where the money is.
Maybe, but
That's where the
would US Canada be that bad a draw? I know that the Mexican Americans who are living in the United States, many of whom, but
does Canada right now is not going to travel the same way Mexico is. If you've ever been to a USA Mexico game, even a friendly, the amount of Mexican fans that you get, even for a friendly, is outrageous. I went to Lincoln Financial Field for a post-World Cup friendly between USA and Mexico in September. And I mean, it was packed to the gills full of Mexican fans, right? And this is just a post-World Cup friendly against the U.S. in Philadelphia to play. And so I don't believe right now that Canada brings the money, brings the eyes, brings the tickets that Mexico and the United States would bring right now. Am I
it's a
discounting
good TV market, though. It's a good
it's
TV.
a great TV market, but there's a lot of people in Canada who are kind of burnt by the Canadian team after the World Cup. And kind of like, we're not sure what to make of them. And they still, as a country, have not gotten as invested in the soccer team as some of the other ones were. So if you're asking me, like, would it be good? Would it be good? Yeah, it would be great. There's nothing wrong with USA Canada or Canada Mexico in a final. Is it going to be the revenue generator that USA Mexico would be? Unfortunately, I'm going to have to say no, it won't be right now.
No, and realistically, like the contempt, it flows both ways. Because the United States lost to Mexico in the World Baseball Classic. This and and it's obviously not our soccer rivalry, but I was like, come on, we don't lose to Mexico. How can this stand? First of all, Mexico has long been a soccer tradition. So us beating Mexico is like us coming up, but we invented baseball, and Mexico beating us in baseball. Come on.
Well,
I hate-
Japan also beat us in baseball, so
Well,
there's that.
I know, but that's I'm like the rivalry, the United States Mexico rivalry to me transcends it's, and you know what? It was soccer that brought it in. And but it's like, no, I don't want to lose to Mexico in anything. I don't want to lose to Mexico in tiddlywinks, because that's not what we do in the United States. It's not on our home.
Alabama Auburn. It's Alabama Auburn. It's Yankees Red Sox. It's all that stuff rolled into one, and I just don't think, to again go back to that, I just don't think that that's going to bring it in. So, Mike, did you have any thoughts on the U.S. men's national team performance this evening?
I mean, not really. It's Nations League. We rolled over Grenada the other day, and I think that's, and honestly, in this window, this international window, that's the spot you want to see them be better, is in that first game, because they've got to go back to their club teams, and you don't want them getting hurt, and they've got to manage
that was
that
the
stuff.
stronger. That was the stronger of the two lineups.
Yeah, and they won tonight anyway, so it was. I mean, it was fine, but it was a strong performance against Grenada. That's what I wanted to see tonight. They won, so I mean, no complaints. Nobody got hurt, as far as we know, as far as I can tell, and so I think it was a pretty successful international window for the U.S. men's national team.
All right, Coach Matt, Professor Matt, I did it again. Before we move over to Europe, tell me do you have any more closing thoughts on the U.S. men's national team, their performance, anything like that?
No, and I'll sort of echo what Mike said. It's a small window. We got a positive result. I think a very positive result. And hey, we managed to win today. There's nothing else you could really ask for, especially because we got the big result with the better, the stronger, squad out there. So no, I mean, nothing really else to add.
So let's go over to Europe. Matt Stead, I'm going to give you this one. You guys have been talking about Kazakhstan. And all right, yeah, they could be the dark horse. They could be the dark horse. They and it was they had a win this weekend. So Stead, I'm gonna let you set Matt up if you want to tell us what happened in that match.
I'm going to let Matt talk more about this. I just want to say that when I saw the game was on, I got excited and I was like, okay, I can finally kind of see what players they have. And I was just curious to see, what do they look like during the game? Do they look like a team that is like, we're just here to have a match? They're playing at home. They had, I think I was disappointed to see the number of fans at the game, and it wasn't a well-attended game. I wished it was a bit more attended, but
I think it was also at a very awkward time.
It was at an awkward time. It was a very awkward time, but they were wise to get that game on television. Very, very wise. And Matt, we discussed how there's an influx of capital that's going into the game in Kazakhstan. They have a sizable population. They have a very athletic and they have a history in sport. Granted, I was highlighting their combat sport pedigree, but I saw a team that if you told me that it was Sweden, I would have believed you, just from the way they looked like on the field. They looked like a competent team. I said, okay, these guys look like they have something here. And then to see the second half come out, where the first half you're looking at a team that's just going, let's just try to stay on the field, keep the scoring to a minimum. Maybe we can get a counter. They gave up all the possession in the first half to come out in the second half and just lay it on them. Now, what's a common strategy in combat sports is when you feel like you're matching up against someone who might be a bit bigger or a bit stronger than you, what you can do is you can rely on the fact they're probably going to gas out. And then in the later rounds, that's when you start to put it on. That's what Kazakhstan did. I just found it really funny that with a country with such a combat sports pedigree, that strategy seemed to be what I saw in this game. But Matt, please take over for this because I can't pronounce 3/4 of these guys' names. But it was a great game to watch. It was a fantastic game to watch.
Before Matt takes over, let me set it up. The game was in Kazakhstan. The game that
the game was in Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan and Denmark, right? So Denmark has had a couple of good runs.
I didn't know that's what you wanted me to do. Sorry.
Yeah. Kazakhstan gives up 2 in the first half, comes back and manages to win this game 3-2. So
now let's talk about too, though. They were able to score legit open play goals and not in stoppage time.
No.
These were scored before stoppage time. These were last 10 minutes after a penalty given up. And, you know, one thing I will say this that really bothered me was I'm Betov. I think I'm sure I'm saying it wrong.
I'm Betov.
He took his shirt off after he scored.
Mm-hmm.
And of course they carded him because they do that. And then of course he gets a yellow card. Now he has a red card. Now he's out. And that just was
Do you think that he cared about the red card?
Yes.
I think he cared, but
I think he cares now. I think he definitely cares now. This didn't qualify them for the tournament. It was a win. It was a win. That's
I would also like to
try to qualify for the tournament, and I get it. But what I'm saying is this. I used to say players need to keep their heads together. Don't take your shirt off. It's a stupid yellow card. You're going to end up hurting your team. Especially when you're wearing that sports bra looking thing that all the players wear now. You look like an idiot when you take your shirt off. In this situation, I'm going, I wish that rule wasn't there. Let the man take his shirt off. Just let him do it. Just let him celebrate. Just let him celebrate. It's a big deal. Let him celebrate. That bothered me. That was probably the one time where I felt like the player deserved to be able to take his shirt off. Matt, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He recorded the first Gordie Howe hat trick in Kazakhstan history. I think he got a goal, an assist, and a red card.
But arguably, if we look at Kazakhstan's history in qualification, and again, who knows what this leads to? But I'll tell you what, this group all of a sudden is now wide open. And I'm sorry, not Astana, Nur Sultan is a tough place to play because you're effectively playing in Asia.
Absolutely.
Let's be real. It's not a fun journey.
It's not an easy place to get to. No.
This may be one of the most important goals of their national team's history. This is a big result. And I don't know, Stead, did you see any of their first match against Slovenia?
I did not, no.
They lost 2-1 in Maribor, which is not an easy, we're talking about not easy places to play. So they got that out of the way. Obviously, the return leg in Copenhagen is not going to be fun. But if you look at the rest of that group, they're probably they're in the conversation. And the great thing about Euro qualifying, top 2 are automatically in. So they have a puncher's chance. And I know you in the group chat, were saying, hey, I'm watching this. And you were like, this looks like a functioning team. I don't know whether, it was sort of the classic, combat sport, wait, and then hit them. I had said this a couple weeks ago when we talked about the Kazakhstan Premier League, and I think I said it in the chat as well. Maybe it's also a byproduct of this is a deeper team. You can bring on impact subs. There are holes in this team. I think I mentioned their goalkeeper, Igor Shatsky, simply because he's played everywhere in the post space. He's literally the rent-a-dude of post-Soviet goalkeepers. But there's like legit talent spread around the squad. And it's funny, they play a 5-3-2, which when you hear 5 in the back, you think pragmatism. And God knows we're probably going to talk about Antonio Conte before this is over. But it's not a pragmatic 5-3-2. It's a lot more flexible, and the wing backs are quite actually forward thinking. This is a huge result for them, and kind of, dare I say, a little vindication of what we were saying a couple weeks ago. Like, one of the stands is going to make a major tournament at some point. And Bayern Rob brought up in the chat on the side, they were in Asia from 94 to 02. I think had Kazakhstan stayed in Asia, we would already be talking about them having made a run in a major tournament.
As we've talked about Uzbekistan already.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's an exciting time in Kazakh football.
Matt, let me ask your opinion on something. What is a world where Kazakhstan is in European football and Russia is in Asian football?
The dystopian, screwed up place that Vladimir Putin has created. And that's the sad truth of it. That is the sad truth of it. And here's the biggest joke. The trajectory of Kazakh football looks a lot better than Russian football at the moment, because, and we'll talk a little bit about Belarus. What I saw from Belarus this weekend, that is what Russia, whenever they're allowed back into the family of nations, has to look forward to for a while. That's what isolation does to you. It's not good.
I mean, that's true. Yeah.
I want to highlight one or two other games. The one that I want to, instead, I got to work this in one way or another. The last time you and I were together was to watch the end of the Six Nations tournament. We did go out, watch Ireland win. It was a pretty spectacular afternoon, if I do say so.
Put it lightly.
Yeah. But today, but rugby's over. It's on to football. I felt as though watching Ireland-France today, Ireland actually kind of held their own. And kind of in the U.S. vein, had they had a little bit more finishing quality at the end. Now, the new France goalkeeper, Magnan, was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, completely called out and made some saves at the end of the game that were epic. But had they had a little bit more quality in the attack, probably actually could have gotten a result out of this game today. So,
well, you know what? It's funny you bring up the France Ireland game, because another game too that's kind of stuck out to me was Netherlands Gibraltar. Now,
okay, that was 3-0. What stuck out?
It's only 3-0, and they had a red card after getting drubbed 4-0 by France. What is wrong with the Netherlands? Something's wrong there.
That they only beat Gibraltar 3-0?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm just looking at. I'm going.
Gibraltar is like a mandatory 9-0.
Exactly.
Like, there's every male between the age of 18 and 25 in the country is on that team.
Called up, yeah. I mean,
All
shoot.
right, Byron Rob is telling me that the Dutch had food poisoning issues, and I'm wondering how much of that is going. Also, what we said earlier is the second game of a window,
Mhm.
and how much do you want to invest in absolutely slamming Gibraltar?
I mean,
Right.
the thing is, you don't have to invest to slam Gibraltar. You don't have to. And look, we've seen Gibraltar with negative 42 goals in a qualifying campaign.
Mhm.
So you know what? All I'm saying is, Rob, I really hope that's the issue, because when you look at the Dutch team, that's a pretty strong looking team.
Yeah, can I?
So, go ahead,
Here's
Chelsea
the
Mike. Yeah.
here was the starting lineup of the Netherlands today: Berghuis, Weghorst, Simons, Depay, Wiefer, Wijnaldum, Dumfries, De Ligt, Van Dijk, Ake, and Sillissen. Like that's
All right, but there's no like Cody.
That's not like a that's
It's
not
not like a
D
B
team.
team.
No.
Yeah, but there's no like Cody Gakpo in there.
Isn't your boy Weghorst?
Listen, as a Manchester
Good.
United fan, like Weghorst is the black hole. I mean, all the chances. I know that you love him, but
Yo, by the way, Cody Gakpo came off the bench in this game.
all right,
He
so
was
he
in
got
the
a couple
game.
he was in the game. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm not going to put anything into the fact that they only won 3-0. You know why? Because I'm not Dutch and I didn't win the game. Because that would have been, and I get where you're coming from, Stead, because that would have been the same thing had the US only beaten Grenada 3-0. How did you
Look,
not win?
But we've had that discussion before. We've seen the U.S. go up against these minnow countries, these micronations, and win 2-1. We've seen this happen, and so
I've always said with the US going up against the micronations, it has to be multiple goals to
Mhm.
something. As long as you have a winning margin of like 3 clear goals, all right, I can accept that.
yeah,
But it's when if they had gone up against, if the US had gone up against Grenada and it had only been 2-0, I might have had some questions. If it had been 2-1, I'd have really had some questions, because then it's
Mhm.
like, why didn't you put these people away?
Gibraltar had a red card in the 51st minute. They had a red card.
I don't know,
I
because
mean,
I
that must
didn't.
have been the most dull game in the world to watch. I mean, I hope they were just kicking the ball around, just having a pass, because look,
Speaking of,
I hope they did have food poisoning. I hope they did, because if that isn't the situation, let's not forget, Greece has won the Euro before. Granted, it was a long ass time ago, but they have. And as you just said, Ireland was a finisher away from actually drawing the game against France. The Netherlands is at risk of not qualifying for yet another tournament. Another tournament they won't qualify for. And this team is held as the greatest team to never win a World Cup.
yes, they
It's the
are.
Netherlands.
There's Hungarians that would debate that point.
Hungary has not been good since 1958. But
Yes,
I
but-
understand what you're saying, Matt. But you're looking at a team that is consistently, they lost 2 finals against host nations. And they lost the final against that Spain team that was one of the best teams to ever play. So this is a 3-time World Cup finalist winning country and a Euro champion. They're the best country in the world to not win a World Cup. And you're at risk of not qualifying because of Ireland?
Again. Well, yeah.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that we should be like, oh my God, but that's what I'm saying. I hope it's food poisoning. Exactly. So I hope it's food poisoning. Rob, I hope you're right. I hope it's food poisoning.
I don't
also
think
because
that
I'm a closet Netherlands fan, so I'm annoyed
But
right now. I'm
it's
always
still a 3-0 win. It's still a 3-0 win.
I
It's still
understand that.
3-0.
It's Gibraltar. It's Gibraltar. If I get in a fight with my 7-year-old son and he gives me a bloody nose, there's a problem. There's a problem.
So,
even though my son is a bigger kid, he could probably run me over by the time he's 10, but still.
Instead, I'm gonna bring up a name that we haven't talked about in a while. But we talked about AFCON qualifying. Senegal played Mozambique on Friday. And I was texting back and forth with our good friend El Hadji during the game. France had gone up something ridiculous like 3-0 in the first 13 minutes. So I decided I couldn't watch the game because it wasn't on Fox and I don't have Fubo TV.
I think they're on BN. They show some AFCON games.
Oh, no. France was on Fubo. I was just talking, a buddy of mine and I were talking about that game. So I checked on the AFCON qualifiers and Senegal was up 4-1. So I text El Hadji, says, man, that Senegal Mozambique game, they were kind of struck. I was kind of worried about that. That got closer a little bit. He said, yeah, you don't know the half of it. They really didn't play well in the first half. That game ended up 5-1. Talking to that man, you would have thought that it was a 2-2 draw and that they won in the 90th minute.
Yeah. That's very indicative of what I've been feeling now with the Dutch team. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So before we get out of here, let's transition from the international game to the domestic game. Gotta love it. The coaching carousel in full effect in Europe. And you can't make this stuff up. You really can't. Thursday, Fabrizio Romano, the esteemed soccer reporter, reports that Bayern Munich has decided to fire Julian Nagelsmann, and they are going to hire Thomas Tuchel. I think the problem was that Nagelsmann was on like a ski vacation at the time, and he found out the same way we did through Twitter, which is really awesome because they were planning on having him into a meeting on Friday to fire him. But they are going to hire Thomas Tuchel, the former Borussia Dortmund, former PSG, former Chelsea manager. Antonio Conte from Spurs had recently gone on a rant where he blamed everything and its mother on the players and said that they were, and he's also had surgery and he's been in and out, and it just seems like that relationship had got very, very tense. They too had been interested in Thomas Tuchel because if there's one thing that we know about Spurs, what they tend to do is hire people who had once managed at Arsenal or at Chelsea. Like they love to hire them a good former Chelsea manager.
I was going to say, this is kind of like watching your exes, mingle with each other.
Lampard's still available.
Well,
that's a very good point, Matt. That is a very good point.
They were not able to hire Thomas Tuchel, so they then in turn fired Antonio Conte today, and it looks like Nagelsmann is their first choice to take over at Spurs. So before I get too far into all of this buffoonery, Rob, you are our designated Bayern fan and correspondent. Where did it go wrong, and how did it go wrong for Nagelsmann at Bayern?
You don't know who to believe. So there's a famous picture of Nagelsmann with his girlfriend and Brazo, Hasan Salihamidzic, and Oliver Kahn at Oktoberfest, or Wiesn as we call it. And it looks like everyone's like not happy. And the only person who's smiling is Nagelsmann's girlfriend, who, by the way, happens to formerly work for Bild, which is the German tabloid. okay, who apparently broke the story. So then, there's just been brewing. I think like they like the idea of Nagelsmann, but Nagelsmann, like he was like kind of like this quirky individual. He's very young. He does a couple of things that they're kind of like weird people, traditionalists out. Like he came in to the training facility in a skateboard and he rode a skateboard. I mean, he's still a kid. I mean, like I think he's younger than me. He's like 34 or something.
I think that 38. 38.
Yeah, so
Wow.
he's pretty
I
young.
feel old.
Yeah, he's pretty young. And then he gets a girlfriend who used to work for Build. And then there's a couple points where he sort of ostracizes Thomas Muller to the bench or subs him out really early. And if there's one thing that Niko Kovac did that pretty much sealed his fate was benching Thomas Muller. But other than that, there's a couple players who kind of don't care for him. Ryan Gravenberg don't care for him. Is one example. But there's Joshua Kimmich loves him. Leon Goretzka likes him. Upamecano likes him, along with Pavard. Neuer hated Nagelsmann because Nagelsmann got rid of his pal, the goalkeeper coach. And Sven Ulreich, the backup keeper, didn't like that either. But look, Nagelsmann has not lost in Champions League this year, and that's the prize. That's the biggest prize that that Bayern wants. They want Champions. They play these matches for Champions League. The Bundesliga is like a warm up to midweek games, and Nagelsmann was doing well, but they because Xavi Alonso pretty much took Julian Nagelsmann to school. Last week, Dortmund jumped them in the standings with the Klassiker coming up. I think the board really rushed to judgment here. I don't like it because you pay 25 million euros for Nagelsmann to get him out of Leipzig. You give him a 5-year contract, which is almost unheard of in these times, and he's not going to meet it in modern football. And then he does so well in Champions League. He takes out PSG. I mean, granted, we bash PSG a lot here in Champions League, but they still have Messi, they still have Mbappe and Neymar, and he beat them without replacing Robert Lewandowski. Not having your number one keeper in Manuel Neuer, who pretty much cheats his defenses, the way he does. Not having Lucas Hernandez. All that, and then not to mention Leroy Sané and Serge Gnabry kind of playing and he still had to play. They're still in all three competitions. They have excellent chances to win them all still, and this is a rush to judgment. And then to think that they can tame Thomas Tuchel, who has ruffled feathers everywhere he's gone, is to me like it's like when somebody gets with somebody in a relationship who's damaged and they go, I could fix them. You cannot fix them. Can't.
All right. So the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
So wait. Okay. He won Europe. So maybe he wins you Europe this year and then he,
it's not
next year. He won Europe.
Thomas Tuchel is widely regarded as one of the better tactical coaches. It's not even that he won Europe. Yes, he won Europe with Chelsea. He won the FIFA Club World Cup with Chelsea. He took Chelsea to both the Carabao Cup and FA Cup finals against Liverpool last year and lost both of them on penalties. He took PSG to their only Champions League final, which they lost to Bayern Munich in a tight game, 1-0. Nobody doubts Thomas Tuchel's ability to coach a team. There's nothing that you can say. Like, he is a phenomenal tactical coach. But when you read about him, when you look at him, when you study him, everybody who works with him says he is one of the hardest people that they've ever had to work with. And the thing with him and his history since he left Mainz is like a broken record. Just keep skipping it and repeating. Borussia Dortmund, 18 months, falling out with senior players and club hierarchy. PSG, about 20 months, gets fired, falling out with senior players and club hierarchy. Goes to Chelsea, 18 months, falls out with senior players and the club hierarchy. There's no doubt that he can coach anything.
But can I
that's
say,
why- But before you say that, why do you think Rob and Mike, Chelsea Mike, that Bayern only gave him a 2-year contract?
well, I think they gave him a 2-year contract because 2 years is all he lasts. And maybe he goes to Bayern Munich and that's just the fit for him and whatever. But I will tell you, I will just say
We've
this
said that
before
about a
Rob.
lot of people before.
No, before
well,
we give Rob like clozapam for whatever he's going through over there.
No, you're going to win games. There's nothing that you can say. Rob, you're going to win games. This is not like Jose Mourinho, where you're going to be miserable for the next couple of months as you get burnt. Thomas Tuchel's going to win them games. There is a better than average chance that he actually wins Europe this year and wins the league. The problem is in 18 months, so he'll get you through this season, he'll get through most of next season, and then you're going to have to can him.
But I will tell you that, I will tell you this, Rob, the fans, the Chelsea fans still chant Thomas Tuchel's name. He's beloved by fans.
So do the Dortmund fans.
But I think the situation at Chelsea was just kind of unfortunate for him. I mean, he would have gotten fired by Roman Abramovich, who hired him because that's what Roman did. But he wasn't Todd Bowley's guy. He wasn't Todd Bowley's guy. So Todd Bowley brought in his own guy.
Why did Todd Bowley fire him?
Well, no, the better question is, why did Todd Bowley spend all the money on Thomas Tuchel's players and then fire him? That's the better question. But I don't know. I mean, no one knows. No one knows why Bowley fired Thomas Tuchel.
I love about Chelsea Mike. I'm about to answer your damn question.
We'll see. I'll critique it.
He drifted it. Todd Bowley and the Chelsea hierarchy said he drifted in and out of conversations. He would get involved in scouting. He'd tell them who he wanted, and then they would consult with him, and then he wouldn't answer and stuff like that. So they couldn't get a clear message from him on the recruitment process. And more and more and more and more and more, he wouldn't talk to the hierarchy, and they're asking him questions. This is the owner asking you questions, and he's refusing to talk to him. So it got to the point where Bowley's like, I have to be able to have communication with my manager, right? I need to be able to talk to him. And Tuchel's like, screw you, I'm not answering your questions.
I kind of think he's flighty in a way that I really like.
But this is the thing
that's just myself personally.
This is what he does with every. There are those people in the world who just have a complete and total disdain for any sort of authority figure. And Thomas Tuchel at this level is that.
I don't
just
think he has
does not-
disdain. I think he's just kind of, he's just kind of one of these people who's in his own mind.
I
like-
actually
No,
I'm with Mike here because his body language.
Yeah, he's got all
I've
kinds of.
never seen a more awkward human being. When you guys won the Champions League, he came in the locker room with a giant bottle of champagne between his legs, did something weird, and then just walked the fuck out.
Yeah,
Creepy as hell. And I'm
No.
just like, yeah, like
he's got no human skills. He's a robot.
yeah,
Yeah,
weird.
but this, all
but
right.
that's
So
when there's billions of dollars on the line, I get where like an ownership group would be very dismayed by like we're not getting
and
communication.
where he could be rather difficult because we know how good he is tactically. And this is why I think he does very well in cup competitions. All of the stuff that, let's say, my manager, Jurgen Klopp, does very well, man management, he blows at. Because what do interactions with Thomas Tuchel look like except awkward? I'll go back.
He's
I'll
the
go
most
back-
awkward individual on the planet.
I'll go back to our old grad student days, and I won't mention any names, but there was a great professor, a guy who I still, Mike, yeah, I still cherish. Every time I went into that man's office, I left thinking, what was that all about? And I think Tuchel is very.
I did not have him for a class, and our interactions were that way.
By the way-
so basically,
the way,
what you're
wait.
telling me is, no, I'm in charge. You be quiet until I tell you to talk. What you're telling me is Thomas Tuchel is the Bill Belichick of soccer managers.
Yes.
All right,
just without
Mike,
that much success that he can just do whatever he wants. But
right.
Michael, I'm going to request something of you as a host. It's a request. Speaking of Thomas Tuchel's awkward interactions, I know we're kind of like at the end of time, but his most awkward interaction was with Conte, and we've got to talk about that too. We've got to talk about that.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, I absolutely love the way that Antonio Conte quit Tottenham Football Club. Like, he pretty much said, your players aren't good enough. Like, there's no leader in this locker room. Your leader is Harry Kane, and he's just not good enough as a leader. And so I'm going to tell you this, and you can keep me if you want. And then they didn't. I mean, I think that's like, it's one of the most artful exits. And it's for Tottenham Football Club. They haven't won anything in forever. What was the League Cup in 08 or something was the last thing they won?
08 or 06,
Harry
yeah.
Redknapp.
Yeah.
No, it was not even. No, it was not. It's longer than that.
No, they won a League Cup in 08. They did.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
they won
League
a
Cup
League
in
Cup.
08 was their only
they
cup
didn't.
this
They
millennium.
didn't. The League Cup in 08, I believe. No, I could be wrong.
Yeah, they beat Chelsea 2-1.
Okay.
Yeah, they did.
I'm gonna just look it up real quick. Yeah.
No,
beat Chelsea.
but I'm saying, like,
But also, don't forget, before that, it was a League Cup in 99 and the FA Cup in 91, and they haven't won the league since, what, 61?
60 something, yeah.
The British.
There was a
Empire.
lot of other stuff going on with Antonio Conte. There's the thought that he was biding his time at the Spurs. He always thought that job was beneath him. He very publicly wanted the Real Madrid job last year, but Carlo Ancelotti did not retire. I wonder how much the health issues over the last couple of months and the flights back and forth to Italy
Mm-hmm.
kind of got on him. But then you hear about like the obscene training methods that he was going through, having the guys run like 2 kilometers before a match. This is not like a preseason match where
Mhm.
I understand, and I've talked about, like, they go out and, from what I've heard, his preseason training methods were, I mean, they put basic training to shame
Mhm.
with how much, but the whole entire point was make your team, make you run,
Yeah.
get you in shape so that when you go out,
Matt,
Yes.
jump in. Go ahead.
jump in, Matt.
But I've also heard he would run these like, insane training sessions. But
Mhm.
also a lot of issues. Now his health recently definitely contributed to this. This goes back to even last year, where there didn't seem you talk about a lack of communication with the players. Apparently there's a lot of question about when these training sessions would actually take place. They didn't have a preseason tune-up tour because the club would call Conte and be like, yo, do you want to set up friendlies like in Austria? And it'd just be like, maybe, then hang up. And so like they didn't do any kind of warm weather training during the winter, during the World Cup break. Things were weird. Things were
Yeah.
draconian and weird at the same time.
But I don't
Look-
think any of us should really be surprised though, because this is who Conte's been. I
Okay.
mean, Chelsea, Mike, you illustrated awfully well when he left Chelsea that this guy is a loose cannon. He's got
No,
a couple
exactly.
of screws loose.
You guys, look at this crest. Look at this crest right here. You know who these 2 guys you're talking about? They're the 2 last big trophy winning managers of my club. Antonio Conte, he's difficult to deal with. Yes, and Abramovich fired him, but he's the last guy from my club to win the league. Thomas Tuchel, he's a weirdo. He's a space case, he's in his own head, crazy. He won the Champions League for us. They're both successful managers. Antonio Conte, you have to know what you're getting. He's a hard-headed guy.
Yeah.
He's difficult.
Go-
He's not
go-
a
go ahead.
player's manager.
Right.
And you know what the problem at Tottenham is, that Harry Kane is given free rein in England to be everything, but not win anything. He's never won anything.
Yeah.
He
Matt-
needs
Well,
to
he's
be
never-
managed.
Matt, go
He
ahead.
needs
Jump in,
to
Matt.
be managed.
Jump in, Matt.
What Conte did and the method, I Mike took much joy out of this. You probably should never do. However, there's something about Italians and their honesty. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Chiellini said something about Tottenham several years ago. There's something about Italians and their brutal honesty about the culture, and the culture, I'm not going to say of losing, but culture of bare mediocrity is Tottenham Hotspur. Because half of what he said about the culture of the club, 100% accurate.
Look, Tottenham is happy with being champions of North London. They are. They're
And they're not going to be this year.
but no, they're not. But they've been
But
swept. But
instead, I'll
still,
take it a step further. I would rather have Todd Bowley, who thinks he's still owning the Dodgers, our useless owners, Glazers, before I would
Cronkies.
take Levy, because at least the American
Yes.
guy's sport is somewhat involved.
Exactly. 'Cause
Guy just wants to make money. That's
Thank
all
you.
he cares about.
Thank you, because that was my biggest thing. Is this squad is too talented to be as bad as they are, and it falls at the feet of Levy. Levy has. I think that the moves that they've made have not
Ooh.
worked out for them.
Let-
But look, there's something with that club. There's something with that club, and they're reeking of what Arsene Wenger's last few
Well-
years at Arsenal were, where he said top 4 is a trophy.
I-
It's not a trophy. It's not a trophy.
I
No.
The Spurs are happy enough. The fact that there's no St. Totteringham's Day, they think that that somehow means something. That means nothing. Arsenal had 20 of them in a row. It was a joke for about an hour and a half, and then we'd be mad that we got knocked out by Monaco again in the freaking Champions League.
Instead,
see what I mean?
I watched on YouTube when Tottenham crashed out of the FA Cup. I watched a Tottenham fan spend like 7 minutes explaining why top 4 was more important than winning the FA Cup.
I watched
The FA Cup tonight. You haven't won a trophy in forever.
I heard.
I
All
would
right, go
mind
ahead, Matt.
talking about trophies and lack of trophies. So they hired Pochettino. Pochettino, to his credit, did about as much as I think he could, like getting to that Champions League final against us, which he had no business being in. Good stuff. You fire him, you bring in Mourinho, you know what you're going to get with Jose. But here's the thing: Jose gets you to a cup final, and you fire
Matt,
him before.
Can I stop you real quick? You're right. You just had a bit of sequence wrong. They get rid of Pochettino, and wasn't it Nuno Espirito Santo who
No,
came in?
he's
Yeah,
after
Mourinho
Mourinho.
very quickly. Well, you
But
forget
see,
about
here-
Nuno.
But see, here's that actually goes back to my point. So you do the Mourinho thing, doesn't work out. You hire Nuno. Okay, we can debate how good a manager Nuno is. But to me, and I remember telling a student of mine, very good student, who's a Tottenham fan, okay, this means Levy's realized that this squad needs an overhaul. This is the summer that they're talking about Kane potentially leaving. You know, maybe sell Kane, take that money, reinvest in younger players. Say what you will about Nuno, he has a good track record with younger players.
But you have to remember when they hired Nuno, like that job was open for a while,
Bad long.
and they couldn't get anyone
Yeah.
to do it.
Then
The other thing that I want to point out, though, is Antonio Conte said sometimes it's not the manager, it's the players. The players, at the end of the day, rebelled against Pochettino.
Mhm.
He reportedly lost control of the locker room, the senior players, and then he had to go. You turn to Jose Mourinho. We know what Mourinho is. We know how he's going to be. It's no surprise that he falls out with senior players.
Are we still blaming him for Dele Alli?
I don't think that you can blame him for
Turkey.
Yeah, I don't think you can blame him for Dele Alli, but I definitely believe that you can say like Kane and some other ones didn't feel good. You bring in Nuno. I don't know them intimately. I don't know them as people. I've never talked to them. But from what I gather in the public sphere, you could not pick two diametrically opposed personalities as Jose Mourinho and Uncle Nuno. Matt, you weren't on the show when Stead and I started the jokes about Uncle Nuno because we believe that Uncle Nuno looked like your mad
He
lost
looks
uncle.
like me and Mike's uncle.
Yeah,
He looks like.
yeah.
He looks like.
Yeah.
He
but
looks like
Mike
our uncle.
and Chelsea Mike. You were there. We said he should not take that job.
That
He
job,
had
we-
to.
we
He
all
had
said
He
to.
had to.
But he had
He
to. But
had
we
to.
said that's not going to work for him. It's not going to work.
But then he has a falling out with senior players.
Mhm.
Gets fired. You bring in Conte,
Who's the ultimate mercenary?
but
Mhm.
Conte goes through last season, this part of this season, has a falling out with the senior players, a lot of whom were still on the team, however many managers ago, who now want to bring back Pochettino. Now,
So
the question is not whether
let me ask you the question. Who is senior players on Tottenham?
I mean, I don't
And
want to.
what is
Dyer?
Daniel
Do you
Levy
think
saying to them?
Dyer's got control of that
What-
locker
what-
room?
what is
Dyer-
Levy
I
saying
mean,
to them?
I was
what is
about to say he's still there.
it's
But
it-
what is Levy
okay,
saying to them to
I'm
make
gonna
them think
answer
that
the
they're
que-
bigger than the manager? Because apparently these players think they're bigger than the manager, and they can come in and they do whatever they want. They still haven't won anything, and they're clamoring for their top 4 spot again. But every year you do this is every year your greatest player you've had in the last 2 decades is getting a year older and more likely to leave, and your second best player, who's now battling injuries, is probably not going to play at this top level more than a couple. Look, Son Heung-min has been a great player. He's only got a couple of years left. He's starting to fall apart. This is what happens to these guys. It's not, and it's not uncommon. It's not. It is. What's going to happen to this squad now? This is the same crap because these fans and this squad is happy with being this type of club. They're happy with this,
I
and which
don't
is why
think
they're
that
always
is-
going to be this club.
Matt, before I
True.
get to you, and I'm
Even though
going
I'm
to
just
you next.
that's like saying what I'm
But
saying.
the other thing is, like, I think the big issue was Conte building that understrength lineup at Sheffield United and losing that FA Cup tie, which was a legit chance to get to Wembley in a semifinal and let the chips fall where they may. Right, that was where he jacked this one up, because at the time, what did you really have going for you? You know, only he would know whether he thought that he could pull out that Champions League tie. I gotta believe he knew that the league was out of reach. So you save everybody to go into this Champions League tie to hope to turn it around, but then you ask the players what they wanted to do. The story goes, he calls the players into a meeting to discuss how things are going. And as the last player walks in, slams the door, walks out, and says, "You all figure it out." They come to him. We want to play. We want to run. They get a draw. They win a couple of games. They get a draw. All of a sudden, it's back to the same defensive tactics. So, yeah, the disconnect there. All right. The Sheffield United one was a big one. They lost that. That would have been a chance for a trophy. All right, Matt, pick up the story. Tell me what you got.
See, we keep going back to this, carousel of managers they've had. Mike, I'm so glad you brought up Eric Dyer because he's important to my story.
Okay.
It's not just, I think, Levy, I think some of the players, I think a fair amount of the fan base is cool with finishing top 4.
The fan base is
Which is
that
very-
is their trophy.
Which for someone who, we got top 4 a lot, but we never won the damn thing. That was infuriating. I don't understand that. But there's also there tends to be, and this comes from up top, a philosophical disconnect. You go from one guy who's all about building youth. Then you say, "Oh no, we need to win now. Let's hire Jose." That didn't work. Let's hire Nuno. Okay, back to we're going to reboot. Eric Dyer might leave. But then you replace him with another version of Jose, who in some ways is even less likable, and Conte. What do you want? Do you think you can win the league now? Do you think you need a rebuild? What is this?
I mean, it's a shame that Tuchel got snapped up by Bayern because that's just
Well,
followed the pattern
let's
of
ask
taking old
the
Chelsea
guy.
managers.
Let's ask the guy who knows the answer to the question of this. Rob, we presume, and very rightly so, that Spurs are going to hire Nagelsmann. What are they getting?
You're getting someone who I personally feel needs to have. He can't start at the top. Like Nagelsmann is better when he has to struggle and and have players that are not superstars that will pay attention to all the details, who don't have preconceived notions. He has a punch. He has a punch above his weight. And he did another thing. He definitely did it at Hoffenheim. And so when this was my problem when he went to Bayern. Like I was like, well, Nagelsmann's never coached superstars and egos. Like that's one of the things we love about Carlo Ancelotti. He can massage those egos, and like they all listen to him, fall in line. And Bayern, Nagelsmann just never proved that he could do it. And so the hiring was like, yeah, he's a great tactician, and you're gonna get that. You're gonna get all in-game adjustments, attention to detail, obsessive detail, mind you. A great footballing mind. But the thing, the great one thing you have is you're gonna need at Spurs, for example, is players who are going to absorb that material. So he could bring out the best in players who you may not feel are great players or just good players. And that's going to be good for not only for Daniel Levy's bottom line, but also because Spurs can't get anybody they want. They're not the prime destination for the world's best players. So you're going to need a coach who can take the next tier level player and get a lot out of them. So the Spurs announcement was that the acting coach is going to be the coach for the rest of the season, which is fine. It looks like Nagelsmann does not want to come back into the game. He's still smarting from this firing. It's his first firing as well. So you're probably, I expect, Nagelsmann to be back on the sideline, come July. With a club, and Spurs is a good option for him. I think he'd do well. The problem is now that he had to find a way to keep Harry Kane there, because if you lose Harry Kane, he's going to come to a team that does not have a number 9 or a world class number 9, and now he has to start from scratch. He has to kind of make one or find one or whatnot. So Spurs fans, I don't know if he can get you a trophy, but it'll definitely be fun to watch. The players will get a lot out of him. They'll like him, especially the younger ones they can relate to. But players like Son, who love being coached, are going to do well for him. So yeah, Nagelsmann should be a fun hire for Spurs, and I will definitely and I know Nagelsmann being sacked by Bayern is almost this is the worst of the worst. But remember, coaches get fired and they get rehired. It happened to Jupp Heynckes, and Jupp Heynckes won everything when he came back. So Nagelsmann could once again come to Spurs, prove himself a little bit, and potentially get hired by a team like Bayern again several years down the road.
Matt, I know you had a question. Go for it.
Actually, I just have 2 quick ones for Rob. First, because
Go for it.
I forgot he was at Hoffenheim. Was Son at Hoffenheim when he
Nope, he was at Hamburg.
Hamburg, that's right. So I screwed that question. The other thing is, the assumption is he's going to go to Tottenham, which I kind of agree. I think something a little bit smaller, but there's going to be 2 big jobs open this summer, we think. PSG, because that guy's just he's gonna be out, and quite potentially Real Madrid. And from what I understand, one of the reasons Bayern was so quick to hire Tuchel was they were terrified that Real Madrid would scap him up in the summer. Is Nagelsmann play for one of those 2 big jobs?
I think you got to look at Poch for PSG.
No, he was there. He left.
Yeah,
He got sacked. Yeah. So, okay. So Nagelsmann, PSG is a bad move for him because he just has the players, but he has none of the soul that he had for Bayern. He's gonna have all the egos all over again, even worse so, because you got the Neymar, you got the Mbappe's, and you got Messi, which, by the way, that might be gone this summer. So who knows? But no, the PSG job will be awful for him. The Real Madrid job is an interesting one. I don't know how much patience of Fiorentino Perez going to have with Nagelsmann. You know, the one thing about, you know, Perez and Real Madrid, they want star players and they want star managers. They want pizzazzy managers who can control egos. Nagelsmann has not proven he can control egos. Now, you know, can he control like a Benzema, or a Cruz? You know, don't mean all right. Like a Modric doesn't really have an ego. I think he'll be fine. But you know, those players are getting older. You know, and you know who's going to replace them? Going to get more star players, and which come with egos. And Nagelsmann, I don't think he's going to control them. Now, yeah, he hasn't
I
proven
think
that
that
yet.
one thing you got to look at though, Real Madrid's and Fiorentino Perez's model has changed drastically. Right? They're no longer going out to sign the Galacticos. In fact, we're at the point right now where the last of the Galacticos are starting to get to retirement age. You're talking about Cruz. You're talking about Benzema, right? Eden Hazard's out of contract. I mean, do you even remember that he's on that team? So the idea that the team now is going to be a slightly younger. It's going to be more focused around Vinicius Jr., Camavinga, guys like that, right? Rodrigo. Those are going to be what this club what Real Madrid moving forward is. So you're not going to have the Galacticos era egos, right? There is no more idea right now of pairing a team that's set up with Sergio Ramos, Iker Casillas, Cristiano Ronaldo, Karim Benzema, and Gareth Bale, all in the same lineup, right? That's just not what it's going to look like. But that Real Madrid job is going to be very, 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 very attractive. Rob, Justin Mike had to jump, but he wanted to ask, why did Nagelsmann drive away Robert Lewandowski?
I don't think that happened. I think Lewandowski just, you know, that was more of a contract issue. Lewandowski wanted a longer term deal, and Bayern were unwilling to give a player his age, regardless of how healthy he was, said deal. And then pretty much Lewandowski said, fine, I'll go somewhere else who will give me my money and give me my years. And you know, Bayern play hardball with him, and they got what they wanted from Barcelona, and it made them even more broke. So no, I don't think Nagelsmann drove him away. I think, you know, Lewandowski, you know, had it really nicely made. You know, he had players who fed on the ball. He got his goals, and he won trophies at Bayern. You know, just they're very unfortunate. You know, with the PSG draw, and then Levy getting hurt, and so, you know, just it's just a cascade of errors in my opinion. No, but I don't think that was an issue at all. Why Lewandowski left? You know, Nagelsmann has the one thing you can do, you can't upset a few key people, and the two key people who remain are Manuel Neuer and Thomas Muller. And when you upset them both, you lose the locker room, and then it's all over for you, because they have so much weight in the Bayern hierarchy. They, you know, some would say they earned that, you know, with how their play and they won and all that. But if you bench Thomas Muller and you mess with his playing time because we still know that he could be a contributor, but you don't believe so, the fans are going to come after you, the players are going to go after you, the board's going to go after you, and then it's going to be the seat's going to get really, really hot.
But
And that was pretty much one of the things that really bit him in the tush.
I mean, even beyond Neuer, Mueller's one of theirs. I mean, he's a homegrown kid. He's played pretty much and will play pretty much his entire career at Bayern Munich. So you're right. You can't mess with Neuer, and you can't mess with Mueller. All right, gentlemen. Man, this has been a boatload of fun. I'm not even gonna lie, Stead. We went a lot longer than I actually thought we were gonna go tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm gonna put a bow on this one. We got into happenings in CONCACAF over the international break. Talked a little bit about Jamaica. We talked a little bit about the U.S. men's national team. We talked about a little bit about Florian Balogun. You heard about what makes Kazakhstan the team that you should root for in European qualifying. And we wrap it up all by talking about the coaching carousel and why Spurs continue to hire ex-Chelsea coaches and how that sets them up for a fail. I'm sorry, Los, but that happens. Gentlemen, it has been a boatload of fun. So, for producer Stead, Professor Matt, Bayern Rob, and Chelsea Mike, I'm Mike. We did all right this week, and we'll try and do better next time we're on. This has been the Too Many Guys Soccer Show. Have a great week.